date is February 26, 2020. The time now is approximately 11:45 hours. This is in reference to Orange County case number 20-017904. I'm currently located at 4704 Lucier Court. In Winter Park, Florida, 32792 at the Tealwood Park Apartments Complex in the front office. Also with me is, can you state your name, sir?
Abraham Moreno.
Okay, and your date of birth? So with me is my partner, Detective Scott Lowen with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Okay, Abram, prior to us going on recording, I was informed by Melissa, who's the property manager, that you knew Jorge Torres.
Correct.
And you were explaining that you knew him from Philadelphia when he was smaller.
Yes.
And then now you, I guess, had reconnected
when I started working here in October.
In October of last year?
Of last year.
Of 19. Okay. So you said that you last saw him, you said it was last Tuesday?
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday. Okay, thank you. So last Thursday was the 20th?
Correct.
Sound about right? Okay. Now, what can you tell me about Jorge and Sarah's relationship?
They had an on-off rocky relationship, which was physical on occasions. I'm aware of the fact that Jorge had a probation officer. He was in anger management. And again, they had their good times and their bad times. Sometimes he would instigate the situations. Majority of the times, Sarah Boone instigated the situations. And she ended up with bruises. But that's more of him, like, kind of pushing her off of himself.
Okay. And that's what he told you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she verified it as well.
Sarah verified with you?
Yes.
Okay.
This is more corroboration of what the police already know. When he uses both Sarah's first and last name, what you're hearing is a pointed accusation. The intention of the witness is clear.
Did they both drink a lot?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
In excess.
What?
In excess. They didn't drink to drink. They drank to sunrise to sunset, all the time in between.
Okay.
Sarah would have everyone believe that she did not have a drinking problem, unless, of course, she can blame alcohol for something. Over and over, the evidence is that she did have a problem.
Did you ever see them physically fight?
No.
Okay. Have you ever seen them physically argue?
I've seen them argue.
Argue. Okay.
But no physical contact.
Right. Has Jorge confided in you about Sarah? About anything she's, I know you said that they both, sometimes
He notified me, he had told me on a couple of occasions where she called the police on him and had him put out. A couple of times he ended up getting arrested over it. And that she was the reason why he was taking the anger management courses. So
this is a tough one for police and community alike. So often, we hear DV victims who call police being framed like this. Let's talk about this framing in respect to focus and blame, silencing victims, abusive systems, and sorting it all out. I'm speaking in general terms now, not about this case. She called the police on me, puts the focus on the behavior of the caller, who usually really is the victim, and glosses over or completely discounts the behavior of the alleged offender, which is why the victim called in the first place. In addition to redirecting attention away from the real issue, it's a way to shift blame. I can't count how many times I've heard offenders say, "She put me in jail," and victims say, "It's my fault he went to jail." I've even heard it from other witnesses. My answer is the same every time. He went to jail because his behavior was criminal. Asking to be safe is not a crime. Telling the truth is not a crime. This framing and the acceptance of this framing causes a great deal of unnecessary confusion, victim blaming, and pain at the same time as enabling offenders to avoid responsibility. Which brings me to my second point, which is silencing victims. Victims of crime are everywhere. You know some of them. They are your family members, friends, neighbors, colleagues, and community members. And they hear how people talk about victims. They hear this framing. They hear the disbelief, the judgment and blame, the minimization, and every other crappy thing that gets said about victims. Sometimes they internalize these things, and it adds another mountain on top of the mountain they're already trapped under. And even if they don't internalize it, how safe do you think they feel in disclosing what happened to them or what is happening to them? And oh, the accusations. She just did this to get back at me, or she did it for family court, or pick an accusation. Most offenders don't say, yeah, I'm an abuser. Many of you already know about this tactic of abusers reversing things to make themselves look like the victim. It gets messy trying to work it out. And some people do abuse systems. There are people who will use systems as tools to further abuse someone. Stalkers will sometimes use a formal system as a way to force their target to engage. DV offenders will threaten to make a formal accusation. It does happen. People can be devious. People lie. They assume. They operate based on myths and other faulty thinking. Messy, isn't it? It's especially messy when two parties are both crappy to each other. So working through this miasma requires thought rather than a knee-jerk reaction. Responding officers have to listen to everyone and look at the evidence and try to figure out who is the primary aggressor in a given situation. Sometimes that's easy, but often it's not. And once someone is charged, it's important to ensure he or she gets a fair trial. In this case, we know that both parties hurt each other. We also know, and this is going to be important at trial, that Boone was the one who was controlling. She chased after him and wouldn't let him go, while he did let her leave when she wanted a break. We know that she portrays herself as all good and him as all bad. We know she lies. We know she's an abuser. We know how this ended. Back to this witness. His framing lets us know he has a bias. That does not mean he's lying. It just tells us about his perspective.
Because a couple of weeks ago, he was still working at the hardware store on the corner until they closed.
Right.
And that's where me and him would have more of our conversations than anything else. I'm going there to get stuff. Now it's just me and him, one-on-one.
Right.
She's not there to create this situation.
Okay.
This again confirms how controlling and volatile Boone was. She was present most of the time when Mr. Torres spoke to his family and friends. Why? To control. She has to control communications. Mr. Torres got a break and a little breathing room when he went to work. Then he could have a conversation. This says a lot about her and the dynamics. This dynamic, this level of control and isolation of the victim should be a factor at trial if she tries to use battered spouse. Did she suffer? Yes. However, that does not equal battered spouse. And not only does the evidence not support this defense, it's showing the opposite, that he was the one under her control. She was calling the shots. I will note here that I'm basing my opinion on information that is publicly available. So there might be some big piece of evidence that we don't know about.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. You said that sometimes he would instigate it and sometimes she would instigate it?
Yes.
Okay. And he admitted to that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know when did he confide in you about like their last physical argument or fight?
The last physical fight that they had, she mentioned it to me, Melissa, and Mr. G when she got arrested. When we were all standing outside, and she said, "I want to speak to you," and G walked over to an officer and said, "Is it okay if she speaks to us?" They said we would prefer not, but that is her choice.
Right.
We did not ask her any questions. She had told us that a couple of days ago they had got into a fight where he grabbed her by her hair and dragged her down the steps.
Okay.
And that would probably be a day or two before the situation happened.
Before the situation?
The suitcase.
Okay, so when did you talk? When was that?
She was talking to us outside Monday afternoon.
Oh, Monday. Okay. I thought you said the last time she got arrested, and I'm like...
No, when she got arrested, when everybody was at her door.
When we were investigating.
When you were during your investigation, because you was typing in the car.
Okay.
She was talking to us outside. There was a young officer at the door who heard the conversation.
Okay.
Because he was only but 20 feet away.
Okay. So she told you what again? One more time?
That they had gotten into a fight. He grabbed her by the hair and dragged her down the steps.
2 days prior?
Probably about 2 days prior to that situation.
So that would be Saturday.
Yeah, over the weekend, yes.
Whatever
took place over the weekend, Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
Once again, there's evidence that Boone is a liar and manipulator. During the investigation, she tells people about how terrible the victim is and makes an allegation against him, one that he can never defend himself against. But she tells the police everything was fine. She told detectives that they'd been good for a while. Listen to this.
So when he was... In all honesty, we have not gotten into it.
And this.
It was a good day. We've had good days. Like, even considering everything that's going on with our jobs and life in general and ex-wives and everything. It's been good. Like, I don't even know where this is coming from.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
The last physical was probably, you said, I think, a month ago? Where you got the injury, right? You said that was a month ago?
A few weeks, give or take, yeah.
A few weeks.
Why are you lying about this, Sarah? If this assault occurred, why not tell the police? And if you don't want anyone to know, why tell other people? Could it be that she'd already decided to go with the hide-and-seek unintentional story, and she realized that mentioning an assault 1 day prior might make the police think she wanted payback? You know, to make him squirm, to punish him, which is what she did and what she intended to do. And her goal was to hide her intent. But there were no marks on her. She even pointed that out to detectives. She thinks she's so very clever. But she's worried about what people think of her. She just can't help but run to the neighbors with a story to vilify the victim and make herself look like the victim. You watch. The defense will try to do something with this. I'm thinking, too, about the neighbor who said he heard a loud noise like something crashing down the stairs. Did Sarah know or guess he heard this? And so she put out a peremptory explanation? Will the defense lawyer put that neighbor on the stand and make him doubt himself, make him doubt which night he heard this crashing? Or maybe she's not that clever, and she's simply describing an incident that occurred before, a familiar scenario, like the one where she was choking him on the stairs and he had to kick her off, and he ended up charged. Regardless of the outcome she intended with her devious and disgusting lies, what she has done is proven once again that she is a manipulative, self-serving liar.
Then she told us that they were playing hide and seek. He went in the suitcase. She zipped it up. And then she went upstairs and passed out.
Did he ever confide in you, like, what he did? Like, for fun? Besides, like, the drinking. Like, is there other activities that he did? Did he ever tell you, like, oh, I'm trying to get into this?
They actually used to do a whole lot of arts and crafts inside of the townhome. And they did a lot of it with her son. Kind of. There was a perfect relationship, but they tried, I guess, in their own way.
Right.
The detective is going into a bit of victimology here. This can produce a wealth of information and insight. It can also provide other investigative leads. It doesn't sound like we got a lot of information, but we did learn some important things. Note the absence of outside activities, pursuits, goals, and dreams. Notice activities center around Sarah and were directed by Sarah. She said this about arts and crafts during her interview with detectives. She isolated and controlled this man. He tried. She directed, controlled, and complained. To this day, she is trying to direct and control, and she complains. How many of you have been there? Twisted yourself into knots for someone else, but it's never good enough.
Is there anything else that he would tell you about him and Sarah's relationship that you think is important for us to know?
I think you actually know it all. They just had a very rocky physical relationship.
Did you ever see marks or bruises on him?
Yes.
Okay. Like what?
Scratches on the neck.
Scratches.
Scratches on the neck, just like what she did to Brian. I'd wager that no reputable expert on battered spouse is going to take her side.
As I said, with her attacking him, he's kind of just
trying to stop.
Shove her back, but because she's such light skin, as soon as he touched her, instant bruises all across the arms and things of that nature.
Right.
That he sometimes left marks on her while acting in self-defense has been established before. So even if you don't want to believe this witness, there is other evidence to support what he is saying.
So I don't know if you've noticed or if it's been before, but the door, there's like a bunch of markings on the door. Have you ever noticed that or no?
On which door?
Their door.
Their front door, the very front level door.
I haven't looked at it.
Okay.
But I know if I was to look at it, I could probably tell you what it was.
Okay. We're just curious if, like, since you had been working here, if you noticed it or saw it.
No, because they had keys. Now, they probably slamming doors back and forth and had an argument. I know of one where her ex-husband showed up. Mm-hmm. But that would probably be around November.
Brian showed up one time. We know she called Brian to fix and take care of everything, and that Brian was trying to extricate himself, at least to some extent. We know she called Brian at 23:46 hours on the night of the suitcase incident. We don't know what was said during that phone call. Asking about damage helps to establish when and how damages occurred. They want to know which damages, if any, are relevant to the investigation.
Has he ever talked to you about any damage inside the apartment that he needed help fixing that you couldn't do?
No.
Have you ever really been inside their apartment?
Yes, I have. I did basic work orders. I changed the verticals, patch up.
Have you seen any damage that looks like it was caused by either one of them?
Like I said, it just looks like normal wear and tear of a unit.
Well, I noticed on the first floor there's a half bath there.
Yes.
There's like 2 or 3 patches on that door. Do you know anything about those patches?
No, not the door. I did the patchwork in the ceiling, and that was due to leaking air conditioning. Yeah. The door would have had to have been super recent.
Yeah. I did hear about that.
Yeah.
All right.
And you said Sarah has Sarah confided in you where George is not there? Or is it like...
The most she ever did was, we're fighting, we're arguing, he's always arguing with his ex-wife over the phone. I just tried not to get in the middle of that.
Did you know his ex-wife, or was that prior?
Oh, that's well after.
That's
because I lived down the street from George.
For how long?
93 to 2005.
So he would have started at, you said 14?
You know,
So he would have been into his mid-20s.
yeah, but it was me and my wife. And
Yeah.
trust me, she works for DHS.
Okay.
She's a child service kid.
Right.
My son is a Philadelphia police officer. Different circles altogether.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to ask. How well did you know him up there?
Oh, not like I said, to me, he was just a teenager running around with the other kids. And I was
See him at the corner store and stuff like
yeah,
that?
stuff like that. Well, literally on the block, because I lived here. My brother-in-law across the street was my ex-wife's aunt, and then George.
Okay.
So it was, and then her mother lived across the street. So restaurants. So no matter where you go, everybody sees each other on corners and stuff.
He mentions that back in Philadelphia, they traveled in different circles. Also, back then, Mr. Torres was just another kid riding his bike around the neighborhood. They lived there until Mr. Torres was in his 20s, but they didn't know each other well. This witness is older than Mr. Torres. Note the absence of negative comment on character. We're not hearing about a troublemaker, just another kid riding his bike.
Now down here, was it just coincidence you got the job here, was walking through and ran into him and went,
Yep.
holy cow. Okay.
That's literally what happened. Real small world.
Did you ever go out, hang out with them, have
Nope.
dinner, go drinking? The only time we've ever seen him is when you're at work, either here on this property
Or when I would go to the hardware store. That's it.
Okay. Did you ever stay after and hang out in the apartment with them?
Nope. I don't hang out with residents.
Having known Mr. Torres before, if this witness thought he was a bad guy, he likely wouldn't have been so friendly. Boone makes the family sound like these scary killer types from Philadelphia. Of course she's lying. I'm pointing out the absence of any comment from this witness that might support Boone's rotten narrative.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you promise and swear everything we've talked about
I
has
confirm.
been true and accurate to
I
the
will
best of
confirm. I do not swear.
You confirm that everything we've talked about has been true and accurate to the
Yes.
best of your knowledge? Okay. This ends the recording 11:57 hours.